Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Damage Report, the place of a clean, crisp, no issues stream all the time. Jayar Jackson, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. It turns out the dragons that we have for Dragon Squad every week breathed on equipment and it melted a bit. You guys, you get what you ask for. You ask for Dragon Squad. Sometimes dragons get a little bit out of hand.
They cause problems. Yesterday we had an issue where we didn't have any sound. Today we had an issue where we had staticky sound. I'm gonna make a bold prediction. Tomorrow, our mic audio is gonna function as the brown note. So everybody hold on to your butts. But anyway, okay, with that, lots of news to get to. Why don't we jump right into it?
Why not?
For several weeks now, the polls have been fairly clear. They could all be wrong, but it's pretty clear that things aren't necessarily looking good for Donald Trump. And he's been getting more and more emotional and deranged as a result of that. Well, this is what friends are for, because Fox and Friends, Trump's last remaining friends, are gonna try to make him feel better by coming up with some explanation for how actually he's doing great. Take a look.
Andra talking about what's coming up on her show, and she was talking about the number of people that have voted already. 62.6 million have voted. But according to Google Trends data, some people are thinking about changing their vote, and they're asking if they're able to do that. This is what's trending right now. Can I change my vote and Hunter Biden? So guys, do you think that's after we've learned the news of Hunter Biden, the alleged reports about him, people now want to change their Biden votes to Donald Trump votes?
Well, here's the thing, Ainsley. Every state has different rules.
Correct.
But there are Michigan, Minnesota, Washington, and Wisconsin all have specific laws where you can change your mind after you vote. Now, if you vote apparently in person at an early voting place, you don't get a do-over. But if you submit an absentee ballot or one of those mail-in ballots, apparently you can go ahead and change it. In New York State, those who change their minds after mailing in a vote can go to the county board of election to request a new ballot to override the initial one with the last one sent in to the county.
Or you can also in New York, Brian, go to the poll and vote in person, and that's the one that would count.
And wait for election day.
12 blocks.
I know, right?
Yeah, and wait for election day. That's the problem. That's what
It's like cutting back and forth between you can do this, like no, you could go, you could switch your vote, but they're like pretending that everybody is switching their vote, but they're also desperately trying to get people to switch their vote. And look, really fast before you jump in, Jayar. Look, I alluded in the intro to the fact that this is designed to make Trump feel better. Hey, everybody's changing their mind. It's all coming up Trumpy. Well, he was watching because he's president after all. Just 9 minutes after that video, he tweeted, strongly trending, Google, since immediately after the second debate is, can I change my vote? This refers changing it to me. The answer in most states is yes, go do it. Most important election of your life. So he was watching. He's like, this refers to changing it to me. Why? But like what from that trend means that it's changing it to Trump, but he's like now so sure, yes, they actually love me. The suburban wives are changing their vote.
Yeah, so I'm not an analytics person or an internet trending person and go through the numbers of how things click because I think it's incredibly boring. But I decided to run a short test, as soon as I saw this story. I went to Google and I wrote can. And the rest of the sentence was, I changed my vote. Just saying, if I write can, the first thing that comes in is, I changed my vote. So it's the first thing that pops up. I'm not sure how many people did it organically before it became a trend or before it became like a suggested search, but that's how these things work. Once it's getting searched, it gets searched on top of more and more. And if people are searching Hunter Biden and laptop, I wonder why that is. Maybe because you haven't shut up talking about it this whole time and understand that it's backfired on you. There's a story about how White House personnel and advisors are regretting their decision to go so hard on this Hunter Biden and laptop and emailing story that has come up empty for them and hasn't been very effective in the election for their October surprise, they're regretting that they wasted so much time on it, because once they fed it in Trump's small mind, he kept pushing it and kept pushing it. So anyway, who cares that there's a trend on that or a trend on Hunter Biden? There could be a trend on Dragon Squad melting computers after this morning's audio problem. Who knows? I don't care, but it doesn't mean it's really.
I care. Yeah, and you're right. Media Matters did an analysis. This was before yesterday. Over 9 days, Fox had covered Hunter Biden and the laptop for 25 solid hours. That's madness. But anyway, okay, so you did your little test of it. That's what it autocorrects to. I saw, hey, this is trending. And I thought, you know what I'm gonna do, because I'm in journalism, I'm going to ask literally the most obvious follow-up imaginable. I'm going to do the bare minimum of additional research to add a bit of context to this, that apparently the three hosts of Fox and Friends, who collectively probably make $15 million a year or more, couldn't be bothered to do, which is, has this trended before? And you're gonna be shocked to find out it has. But you're not gonna be shocked to find out when it trended, because I decided to search on Google Analytics for can I change my vote in the month leading up to the 2016 election. And what do you know? It was trending then, exactly as much as it's trending now. I decided, oh my God, what if the conspiracy goes really deep? I'm gonna search in the month leading up to the 2012 election. And what do you know? It was trending then too. And it made me start thinking, I wonder why it would trend in the week before national elections. Maybe because that's the only time you'd be thinking about changing your votes, you doofuses. Yes, some people think about changing their votes before an election. It's happened in every election. You know what, I don't have the graphics for it, but it happens in the midterm elections too. It's not a shocker. And really fast, there's two reasons that I think they're discussing this. One is they're patting their audience and Donald Trump on the head to make them feel better. No, don't worry about the polls. Just trust the boat parades and the fact that people are changing their whatever. But the second one is more malicious. This is, I think, an argument that will be used for why they should not count votes that arrive after election day, as they're tabulating the vote. This is one additional thing they're gonna say. They're gonna say, look, a lot of people wanted to change their vote and they couldn't. That's just how the election was. So even though the votes are for Biden, those people, some amount that I'll randomly make up, they don't actually want Biden, they want Trump. What do you think, Jayar? Final thought.
Absolutely. No, totally good thought. I hadn't even thought about that angle, because I'm always trying to think of how they may use something like this to then delegitimize the results. And that's exactly the way it's gonna go. And again, the assumption that goes straight from Trump's tweet, straight to saying, that means it's for me. Why does that mean it's for you? Well, why does that mean it's for you? Well, what about changing their vote for maybe their congressman? Maybe they want to change their vote for their senator. Who knows?
Change their vote on Prop 22. Just say the thing you want to be true. That's what makes a true alpha male. Anyway, we're gonna go to our super chat, see what people are thinking about this first story. Tony Forster sent us in one saying, a hacker been spamming people playing Among Us to vote Trump and threatened to kill the player's device if they didn't subscribe to Eris Loris. I'm not familiar with Eris Loris, but I did see that Among Us had been hacked. So think about Among Us in politics over the last couple of weeks. The Dems use it to get out the vote. The right uses it to threaten the destruction of people's property if they don't support Donald Trump. That's cool. Christopher Moore sent in a super chat saying, you guys are amazing and I effing love you. John, when you cuss, I get scared and excited all at once. I'm thankful for all of the TYT family's passion. Jayar, thank you for your passion as well.
Thank you, goodness, when did you cuss, John?
So I did a stream about an hour ago before the show. There's just too much news, man. I had to. And so we talked about the COVID thing, about the antibodies not lasting more than a month or two.
Oh, and Rand Paul?
No, we couldn't even fit Rand Paul. Leo sent us in a super chat saying, John, I want you to know I stopped a really good video game live stream for this, so you better deliver some hope, Dragon Master. Jayar, you're perfect. Do you, man?
Hey, as long as I come out of this whole thing clean, it's all your fault. I'm fine with
that. Sean says, got my TDR hoodie, avoiding all bleach. Seriously, appreciate everything that you all do. You truly are my light in the darkness. You've given me hope that we can get through this. We press on. Love you all. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Shanna says, excited to be watching live for the first time in ages, albeit secretly while at work. Nice. Love Jayar days. Love you too, John. I guess that's added on as like an afterthought. Thanks.
Wow, the Tuesday crowd is lovely. I love this. I should do this on like permanent basis.
There you go. Maybe. Demario Bros says, good morning from Las Vegas. A few weeks ago, I came up with a cliffhanger thing for 2020. Covfefe 45 and COVID-19 are locked in a deadly battle. Which virus will come out on top? Find out next time on Election Ball Z. Nice. I like that. Jayar, is there any chance that you watched Dragon Ball Z when you were growing up? I think there's a 20% chance.
I feel like it was out maybe when I was like in high school, which I feel like is maybe I was too old for that. I don't know what years it was big.
That's about right.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know, maybe it's not a kid's type of, maybe it doesn't hit tweens. I thought it was like a tweens thing. Maybe it's more like an adult. I have no idea. In other words, the fact that I know nothing about it means no, I've never watched it.
Oh well. Kirsten, thank you for your lull. Sully Vegan says, watching your show this week is like watching the end of Infinity War. I thought Francesca was going to turn to dust yesterday. Oh geez. Wow. Well, we're just hoping that the portals start opening next Tuesday. That's what we're hoping, and the youth vote comes through and everything.
Is that a spoiler?
Okay.
I haven't seen it all yet, man.
It's a vague spoiler, but yes, it is a spoiler. Watch it. If you like Marvel, you need to have watched it. It's been out. I've seen it many times. Leslie says, John Iadarola was Clark Kenting it during the pre-show. Nice glasses, but we saw through your thin disguise, Track and Daddy. Damn, I really wanted you to think that there were two people that looked like me working on this show. Brian, other than Brett and me. Brian Kamey says, if the Supreme Court is supposed to be nonpartisan, why is it acceptable to confirm a new judge with 0 votes from one party, aside from the obvious number of votes not nonpartisan? Yeah, it's whatever they want it to be. They wanted the judge, they got the judge, and we're gonna be talking about the judge in just a few. I did want to thank John's Venn diagram of desire for gifting tier 1 subs. Thank you very much for that, as well as Obi Mom Kenobi, who did literally as we launched the show. Really appreciate that. And okay, so you know what? I think it's probably about time that we get back to the news. We've got a lot on the Supreme Court, both the future of it and the current look of it that's gonna be coming up right now. So why don't we launch into that?
Let's do it.
Well, it happened. Amy Coney Barrett is on the Supreme Court. Barrett was confirmed by a vote of 52 to 48 on Monday evening after Democrats exhausted the procedural maneuvers undertaken to delay her confirmation. That's what CBS said. Personally, I don't even see it. I don't even see the procedural maneuvers. I know that Nancy Pelosi had arrows in her quiver. Were they candy arrows? I don't know, because there wasn't a lot seemingly done. It wasn't even like a series of epic failures to stop her from getting on the court. I honestly don't know what they did. They made a big deal out of the ACA in the hearings. That's about it. Jayar, I don't know. Yep. Did you see anything else? Any like last ditch, hold the door efforts to stop her from getting on the court?
Yeah, there was like a digital filibuster thing started like I think Sunday and it ran through yesterday, where there was some progressive groups that were organizing, but they got a lot of senators on board and like other folks from other groups to speak for a minute or two at a time, several minutes at a time, to talk about how much this is a disaster and how we need to vote and how we need to pressure Republican senators to vote no in the last second, because that's the tactic we should go with. So again, and I think Cenk mentioned this yesterday because I threw that story onto the main show, but I don't blame these progressive groups because that's all they can do at this point. They're not in Congress, they're not senators. It's the senators that have to be the ones that do certain things to actually represent the folks that want them to do these things. So I'm not slamming the idea of them doing this event. It's kind of all they got left because the elected people that may have had some kind of a pull on it didn't do those things.
Yeah. If you were a progressive group that was trying to use this to raise a little bit of money, more power to you. Hopefully the money will help flip Texas and get us a few more seats and all of that. But if you're Chuck Schumer participating in that, implying that doing that is doing your job, no, that's not your job. I know from your point of view, fundraising is the entirety of your job, but that's obviously not enough because she's now on the Supreme Court and she's gonna be on the Supreme Court 20 years after Chuck Schumer has eventually passed away. That is the scope of what we're talking about here. I understand at the end of the day, potentially there was nothing that could have been done to actually stop it, but I don't think that delaying it by literally 1 extra week was outside of the bounds of reason, and they couldn't even do that. And Jayar, do you have anything else to say about this? I'm just so sick, honestly.
So annoying.
I'm so sick of her and the entire thing.
Yeah, as you said, these things have all been said, if not by you or I or anyone else. It's all kind of been obvious. Yes, something maybe could have been done, number one. Number two, I think there's a certain percentage, I wonder how high that is, of some of these senators that are thinking, well, they can push her through, but that means we'll win. Again, all this is, every election cycle is politicians trying to get their job reinstated again. So that's all that really matters. Yeah, sure, a radical on the Supreme Court, this full slant, this completely hypocritical process, whatever, it's fine. People are gonna hate this and it will be in office. That's why a lot of those statements that they made during that digital filibuster or whatever they called it was get out there and vote. Make sure you show them that we didn't like this and put us in office. That's the end game for many of these politicians. Yeah. It's not to actually stop the things from happening to the American people. It's to let them happen to the American people and then blame one side for doing it so that you can get in office. That's all any of them ever do.
You want a bit of literal end game there for you, and at some point we'll stop talking about the Avengers, but it's not going to be today. Mitch McConnell has reached his end game, basically literally, because Mitch McConnell just adjourned the Senate until November 9th, ending the prospect of additional coronavirus relief until after the election, because neither of two things were true. That he actually cared about the American people, he doesn't. He's off, he doesn't care, or that he actually made the calculation that they needed to pretend to care for the purposes of the election. I understand they're not gonna actually care, but they don't even feel like they have to pretend to care. That is how cowed and whipped the Republican base is. That Mitch McConnell knows he can leave them to suffer and lose their jobs and die and all of that. And he's sure he's gonna get reelected. And he's almost certainly right. He doesn't have to protect any other Republican senators. They don't have to do the bare minimum to pretend that we actually have a representative democracy that's responsive to the actual needs, the most fervent life or death needs of the American people. So he's done, he's gone, yeah. He got what he wanted.
And every day there should be talk, and well, no, not even saying what Mitch McConnell has done. Ask Americans, maybe the people that are voting for him, be like, how is your life going? How are things happening during COVID, during the pandemic, during this late stage with the lack of relief? How much money you pay in taxes and how much representation you actually get? Now look at what Mitch McConnell is doing. After you say that, say it again. How many times have we heard about this Hunter Biden server and email and computer and all this stuff over and over and over and over again? And after it gets disputed, after it gets shot down, after it gets obviously proven incorrect, they're still talking about it. So imagine if you have truth on your side and you won't stop talking about something that actually hurts your opponent because they're hurting the American people. Not because you're just trying to win, but because it actually hurts the American people. How about we go for that tactic?
Yeah, I'm just so sick of everything having to do with the White House, the Supreme Court, the Senate, most of the House, honestly. How the state legislature is doing. But anyway, look, that's the future of the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett is now the future of the Supreme Court. There are your stakes, by the way, stopping further damage to the Supreme Court. It's already ruined, it's wrecked, it's shattered. But giving Trump a second term and letting him, replace Clarence Thomas or whoever would be like, we wouldn't even have anything to look forward to, hypothetically. So in day 2 of stakes week, I think it's being made pretty clear. I don't know if we need to do as much in this area. But let's move on to Brett Kavanaugh and another big issue. Donald Trump is continuing his effort to lay the groundwork for challenging any number of different aspects of the vote as it comes in next week and trying to find huge swaths of the votes to simply cancel. And he's being very clear about that. He tweeted this. A tweet that I literally couldn't copy because it is being partially blocked by Twitter, but there it is. Big problems and discrepancies with mail-in ballots all over the USA. How would he know? How would he know? He doesn't know, he's just saying it. Must have final total on November 3rd. So that's what he wants, sure. That's what he's gonna want. That's almost certainly what Amy Coney Barrett's gonna give him because he wouldn't have nominated her if she wasn't going to protect him. The issue is that it's not just her. Brett Kavanaugh yesterday participated in a ruling that is gonna make it more difficult for ballots to be cast. It's gonna disenfranchise possibly tens of thousands of people, and in a way that makes clear that he would be willing to sign on to not counting mail-in ballots after Election Day. So let's go through what I'm talking about here. On Monday evening, the Supreme Court decided in a 5-3 decision that any Wisconsin ballots dropped into the mail tomorrow must arrive at their destination by Election Day in order to be counted. a district court had instituted a 6-day grace period in order to accommodate what Justice Elena Kagan described as, quote, unprecedented administrative and delivery delays in her dissent from the court's majority decision. A majority decision that, by the way, would today be 6-3, of course, with Amy Coney Barrett. Ballots postmarked by election day could still be counted if they arrived within that window. So because it's a pandemic, because a lot of people are gonna be voting by mail, and because the mail system across the country was purposefully decimated by Louis DeJoy and the Republicans, they decided, you know what? It's taking much longer for mail to get there. It is taking an unreasonably long time. People would put their ballot into the mail thinking it would make it there by election day, and it wouldn't through no fault of their own. So we're gonna extend it by 6 days. And in a 5-3 ruling, including by Justice Kavanaugh, they said no. If you sent your mail 6 days, 7 days, 9 days before the election, and it doesn't make it there by election day, and on average in some states it's taking 10+ days, your vote is not gonna be counted. We're just gonna cast it out. We don't care. Now that is scary enough. I'm gonna give you his reasoning for why in a moment, but Jayar, I wanted to give you an opportunity to jump in first.
Well, I mean, you're gonna give his reasoning for it, and I think we might already know it. We just may not know what he may say. Yeah, it's. I don't know how you can watch this happen from the coordination of dismantling the things at the post office that will allow for this to happen smoothly, to then the end game of this now being, hey, if you actually put your vote, your ballot in the mail in time, it no longer counts. Not by any fault of your own, but because you trust this system of this country that you live in, that you're supposed to say that you trust and love this system of the country you live in, the best in the world that we keep touting. But by no fault of your own, your actual ballot can mean nothing because we purposefully screwed it up. That's purposefully screwed up. So that's the legacy that we want to continue to have in this country, or at least is that the shining light on the hill that we want to let the rest of the world know that we now embody? Oh yeah, so we destroy the system that allows for free and fair elections. And then when you participate in that system, we say it's your fault and you don't get to vote.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, now that is horrible, but let's throw on top Kavanaugh's argument for this. So this is what Brett Kavanaugh said in that ruling. For important reasons, most states, including Wisconsin, require absentee ballots to be received by election day, not just mailed by election day. Those states want to avoid the chaos and suspicions of impropriety that can ensue if thousands of absentee ballots flow in after election day and potentially flip the results of an election. So I'm gonna let a dissenting judge respond to that. I will say, maybe we could have avoided those suspicions and them flowing in afterward if the post office hadn't been purposefully destroyed. And you know that full well, Kavanaugh. You know Absolutely. What they were doing. You're pretending you don't. Then he goes on to say, and those states also want to be able to definitively announce the results of the election on election night, just like Trump was saying in his tweet, or as soon as possible thereafter. Moreover, particularly in a presidential election, counting all the votes quickly can help the states promptly resolve any disputes, address any need for recounts, and begin blah, 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 blah. So he's saying, even though there is no reason that the election has to be called on the actual night, and many, many elections have not been, the media projecting a winner is a different thing than the states actually certifying a winner. That is the most standard thing in the world, is that it's not called on election night. Kavanaugh is now jumping in and pretending that it needs to be called on election night, even though that's not actually how it normally goes. So here's the dissent from Justice Elena Kagan, who responds to a couple of these concerns. Justice Kavanaugh alleges that suspicions of impropriety will result if absentee ballots flow in after election day and potentially flip the results of an election. But there are no results to flip until all valid votes are counted. Absolutely. And nothing could be more suspicious or improper than refusing to tally votes once the clock strikes 12 on election night. To suggest otherwise, especially in these fractious times, is to disservice the electoral process. So that partially, I think, is a warning that she knows that he is going to sign on to a call to not count votes, not just received after election day, but counted after election day. It's not flipping. It's not flipping. Like we always have this joke on election night that here comes so-and-so. They're not new votes. They're all votes. In fact, those mail-in ballots were cast long before the day of votes. They just take longer to count. They are every bit as valid. Kavanaugh knows that, but he also knows that they're less likely to favor his chosen candidate. He's not some apolitical robot. he is a hardcore conservative Republican who is going to lie and deceive and twist the law to get Donald Trump reelected. And it is on display. This is not some hypothetical. We're not talking about next Tuesday or the Saturday after that or a month after that. Right now, they are already making changes to states to make it so that some votes aren't going to be counted. The 10, 20, 30,000 votes might end up not being counted as a result of that decision that they just made last night.
And historically, which party wants fewer votes to be counted? The Republican Party does. They've said it openly, and throughout history. And every time they try to subvert any part of the election process, it's to make sure that they suppress voters. That's just the way it's always works. I want you to think about one last thing. Sorry, you guys. I know we're a bit past what we're trying to do on this, but the Supreme Court justices are supposed to be there for life so that you can eliminate things like bias or voting particularly for one side or for the president that appointed you. It's supposed to eliminate that. That's the whole point of it. So people can have this trust that, they're not under the suspicion or not under the pressure of being taken out because of the way they rule may anger the people who put them in place. Instead, now we openly say it, by the way, justices are now put there for the exact opposite reason, so that you have a lifetime of taking part in biased rulings and then and making your decisions based off of your political leanings, not based off of just being there for life. Instead, it's he's gonna vote my way for life. That's what we need. It's openly said. It's completely flipped the reason why we have lifetime appointments.
Man, yeah. Okay, well, I hope people are paying attention to this. We're warning you. We're warning you. Okay, before we get into other news, which there is a lot, let's read some super chats, comments, tweets, and twitches, and all of that. Edward Tran sent in a big super chat saying, "Hello from the land of Oz. Only started watching TDR a couple months ago, and I am addicted to the content. Thank you for taking up the good fight. Rock on, Dragon Squad." Thank you, Edward. Hope Australia is treating you well. They had a rough start to the year too, but really appreciate your support. Thank you, and welcome to Dragon Squad. Sid Graves says, "All the hypocrisy truly makes me sick. Really, thanks John and Jayar for bringing hope and reality. Love you guys." Thank you, Sid. Hey, Just Me says, "Searching, can I change my vote to Biden all day? Do it, blue wave." You don't have to do that. It's all BS. It's all BS, it doesn't mean anything. Look, Trump could definitely still win. He could, but I'm also not gonna pretend that the polls don't currently look pretty good. We'll see. Kavanaugh is gonna weigh in and his vote is gonna be worth, 20 million of ours. We'll see. Shenna Blakely says, "So I'm sitting in my car in front of Target, not wanting to get out because I want to keep listening and I forgot my headphones. I love you guys, ha." Well, I don't know if Shannon might have already gone in by now, but thank you. I appreciate that. I've been in that situation where I wanted to keep listening to a podcast. Okay, let's see. Joe Willis says, "Missouri ruled that mail-in ballots have to be mailed and can't be dropped off, but delivery is sometimes over a week. We also can't track ballots here." Yeah, this is what you get when you don't have a functioning democracy, you have a war on democracy. Like the Republicans are not a party negotiating in good faith in a democratic system. They are termites in a house of democracy, attempting to collapse it. That's all it is, because they're interested in eating wood, and the wood is political power. The metaphor is not great, but you get what I'm saying. We're in a rough spot democratically.
It's a pretty good visual because it's being picked apart from the foundations of it, which were already pretty shaky in the first place. Let's keep it real. It's not like we started our election process on the up and up in this country. It continued to have to be broken down and actually given access to more Americans. And then as that access continued to grow, the folks in charge were like, wait a second, we can't have people voting. We need to have like just our people voting. Let's keep it real. That's how it's always been.
Over on Twitch, Jam Tomb says, "My wubby says, shut your whore mouth with that he could still win talk, LMAO." He could, he could. It's possible if Pennsylvania flips and Florida goes his way and Texas doesn't flip and yada, 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 he could hypothetically still win. I apologize, but it's true.
Whore mouth.
Okay. Exactly. Ferret Queen says on the super chat, "A win for the Republicans, a loss for all uteruses." 100% with Amy Coney Barrett. And you have to wonder, how can a democracy continue when the Republican, everybody's seen the number now, the Republicans have nominated 15 of the last 19 Supreme Court justices. In effectively living memory, they've won one popular vote in a presidential election. They don't have to win to get almost all of the political power. It can't function like that. Like you continue that for a few more years, man. I don't know what people are gonna do. I don't know what people are gonna do when nothing they can do in the system gives them the government that they're voting for. They vote, they're liberal, they support liberal policies, they vote overwhelmingly for liberal presidents. They never get a liberal Supreme Court. Yeah. And the Senate is biased towards the Republicans, even though the Democratic vote in Senate races is much higher. Like it can't function that way.
The number of people that Democrats just represent, just in the number of Democrats versus the number of Republicans, the number of people in the country they represent, it coordinates exactly with how our electoral process and electoral college continues to give representation to fewer Americans than the majority. It's just, it all pans out exactly the way that they need it to.
100%. Okay, well, look, I wish that we were going into a story that was feel good. We're gonna have that a little bit later on, but unfortunately, we have to talk about Jared Kushner. So let's turn to that now. Jared Kushner, famed fail son, is here to tell the African American community what they need to do to succeed, even though I don't think literally anyone has asked for his input. So here he is yesterday talking about success and what you need to do to get it.
And again, one thing we've seen in a lot of the black community, which is mostly Democrat, is that President Trump's policies are the policies that can help people break out of the problems that they're complaining about, but he can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful.
Do you get what I'm saying there? You get what the implication of that?
Oh, absolutely. These lazy black folks don't want to do anything else but sit around on their butts and expect someone to give them something because they don't actually want success. So what he's seen in this black community is that. What does Jared Kushner do in the black community? What black communities has he visited? Which community leaders has he discussed the issues with, or has he spoken at them the way he just did again now? So. What are some of those policies that the Trump administration has been tossing around that black folks just reject? And by the way, black folks, this is just general broad based and just talking about black people in the country. What about your black Republicans? Are they the ones that are listening to the things that Trump is gonna do for black America? And how do you connect just a bunch of people? Just because they're all black, suddenly we have weekly meetings where we go, this is what we're doing this week, black people. Black people, we're gonna not listen to
I think it's a Zoom.
Yeah,
it's a big Zoom.
Nowadays it's a Zoom. Where are the black folks meeting to make this one broad sweeping answer of how we want to reject success, or we want to reject any way to actually go about success? Because black folks have this memo we put out every week. I got mine. It's just I have to hide it from you guys. But I got this one memo from the main black guy, and he told me, hey, you guys, let's stay away from that success thing. It doesn't work well for us. We'd rather just sit on the sidelines in this country that we've participated in our entire existence, and then just not take part in it. We don't want that. How about the successful black people? You was complaining about them a few months ago, the LeBron Jameses that are actually doing something and trying to change the way we approach education and our election systems in this country. LeBron James is doing that. Is he not a successful black person? He doesn't agree with you, so is he not successful anymore? Which one is it? Is it or you want to continue to push this narrative and this stereotype that black folks, number one, aren't successful, which is BS, and then the ones that are successful only did it because they went the right way that you would believe in.
Yeah.
It's not even, there's no dog whistles anymore. Those have been tossed out when Trump first went down the damn escalator. So just speak directly to your racists and then dog out the actual targets of the people that you want to continue to keep down.
Jayar, you are acting. I respect you. You're acting as if the recipe for success is complicated. It's not. It's basically like Sprite. It's just lemon and lime and presumably a glass. There's 2 ingredients to success, and Jared Kushner is merciful. He already gave you one. You have to want to be successful. I'm a very nice guy, and I probably look a little bit like him, so I'll give you the other one. You have to be handed hundreds of millions of dollars by your family. That's all it takes, is wanting to be successful and being handed hundreds of millions of dollars so that you can fail over and over and over for your whole life and it never actually catches up to you. It's really the Donald Trump school of success. And now you have all of the ingredients. Being lectured to by Jared Kushner about what it takes to be a success. is the richest thing in the world other than the family that gave him everything he has, basically. As Don Bayer said, born on third base, thinks he hit a triple, that should be on his tombstone someday. Not Don Bayer's, on Jared Kushner's. Yeah, just handed money, handed opportunities, handed skyscrapers, and eventually handed positions in the White House by a guy even less well-equipped and experienced to actually do something about those things. So anyway, Jared Kushner, like no one was asking. It's the definition of the absolutely nobody meme from Jared Kushner right there. You want a little bit more? You want a little bit more, Jared Kushner?
Yeah, sure.
Here he is talking about George Floyd and the protests that have been going on throughout this year.
So look, there's been a lot of discussion about the issues that were needed in the black community for the last years, but particularly it intensified after the George Floyd situation. And you saw a lot of people who were just virtue signaling. They'd go on Instagram and cry, or they would put a slogan on their jersey or write something on a basketball court. And quite frankly, that was doing more to polarize the country than it was to bring people forward.
Jayar, I've been waiting to find out what the actual effect of all of this social conversation and movement has been. And I've been waiting to find out from Jared Kushner whether it was a good thing for black Americans or not. And apparently it wasn't.
So it was just a bunch of virtue signal on Instagram and then on your jerseys and on basketball courts. I remember when people were out in the streets protesting the things that were going on and protesting all the police murders because of what happened with George Floyd. And that was finally like a rallying cry for more than just black folks to come forward and be disgusted with the way we've always been treating people in this country. So I remember when that happened and they said, how dare these thugs run out in the streets and start burning their communities and flipping police cars and attacking law enforcement. Which one is it? Are they sitting on Instagram virtue signaling, or are they in the streets trying to protest what's been going on? Which one is it? No matter what we do, it is a problem. That's what the answer is. If you stay quiet, why are you staying so quiet? It must not be a problem. If you get loud, why are you so loud? You're so aggressive. This is what's wrong with your community. If you go on the internet and say, hey, we're gonna organize and do this. Hey, why are you just on the internet sitting around doing nothing? No matter what you do, you're wrong. That's where the power structure comes in. If you're sitting in a position of power like this guy is, by absolutely no work of your own by getting there, you're sitting in your position of power. You can dole out and tell people what they've done wrong and what they did right, and maybe you shouldn't have done it this way, maybe you should have that way. Maybe I'll listen to you if you decide to come and kiss my feet and then say that you're in support of me and my father-in-law. Then maybe I'll listen to you and then do nothing about it. We know how this whole thing works. And just sorry, I got a text from the lead black guy. He told me to shh about the emails.
Who is he? Give us a clue. Come on.
He told me to keep it quiet because I've already said too much.
Okay. I don't want to get you muted on the next Zoom. But anyway, look, so why, like you said, no dog whistles. They're just out and out saying it. Yeah, Jared Kushner knows, who he's trying to appeal to. So we're gonna have a little bit more on that on Fox and perceptions of protest and all that in just a minute. But really fast, let's jump into super chats, comments, and tweets. See what people have been talking about. There was a super chat I saw from Brian who said, with Barrett's confirmation, I fear Trump's second term was just guaranteed. Kavanaugh favorably citing Bush v. Gore and Rehnquist argument during a Wisconsin case, and Barrett, Kavanaugh, and Roberts having assisted Bush in that case. It's like from the last time they overthrew an election, they have just been putting together the next team that's gonna do it. The next anti-democratic dream team is now your conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court. So that's cool. That's cool. Audrey, thank you for your super chat. Let's see. Franklin Sharpslicer says, it is what it is. What's done is done. Maybe she'll become a real judge and surprise everyone. Now she no longer needs to kiss the ring, and knowing history will know if she did the right thing. Franklin, I like your poems, and I like your poems with hope even more, but I doubt it. Franklin. That was a good one though. Okay, Carol Funk says, John, the Students for a Democratic Society Denver and the Freedom Road Socialist Org Denver have organized a post-election protest for a people's mandate on the day after the election on the Capitol steps. See you there. I would love to be. Haven't done much traveling. Denver's going to be tough, but look, if it comes to it, there's going to be stuff in the streets of LA. You can rest assured of that, and fight the good fight, Carol. Okay. Julie Martin says, I want to see Biden's campaign take the stance of, quote, we're going to win, so let's win big, instead of we have to be careful to not lose. Go Rays. Julie, I like the sentiment, but I feel like fear of losing motivates people more. Do you think so, Jayar? What do you think?
Well, these politicians?
No, I'm saying like a message out to voters who might be sort of on the fence, which is gonna motivate more Biden voters. We're gonna win, let's run up the score, or we might lose this thing, get out there.
Absolutely, yeah. Let them. There's a fear of losing is way more powerful because also we're lazy. I've always said this too. We're lazy. We don't like to vote. Especially that's why they make it so hard, because even if it was simple, people still wouldn't like to vote. But if you make it hard, it gives people a real reason to just step back out and be like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. This is ridiculous. So yeah, if they feel like they've already won it, which is why I hate those polls saying, oh, it's already over, it's in the bag, Trump is done, It's totally gonna lose. Then people sit back and go, okay, good, I'll let them vote. I don't need to do it.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, we had a few super chats from Demario Bros, who says, I'm a TYT premium member, yet for some reason I don't have the TYT emojis. I use the iPad YouTube app, by the way. And I think Demario Bros had asked about sending the emoji super chats. I'm actually not sure how the emoji super chats work. Maybe somebody on the YouTube chat could explain that. But in terms of the TYT emotes, I think that's just a Twitch thing. I'm pretty sure. There's certain benefits to YouTube, certain benefits to Twitch. The super chat emojis is obviously just a YouTube thing. But hopefully somebody in the chat could help Demario Bros out. Okay, Blue Heart Box says, big super chat for JR's amazing vent. Nice. Thank you for that.
I love it. Thank you.
Final super chat, Maleta Ruiz says, not to mention many times affluent black communities that were irradiated through violence, like in Tulsa. 100%. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, with that, let's jump back into the news. So I'm gonna continue with those graphics from the Jared story after that first tweet, if it's helpful to the director. How racist are the Republicans? Well, it turns out that if you're a little bit tricky in your polls, you can get a pretty good idea, by the way. So let's talk about the results of a January Washington Post Ipsos poll. Found that more than 8 in 10 black Americans think that Trump is a racist. 65% think that now is a bad time to be black in America. So Jayar, that Zoom call, they polled it. They're pretty sure that he is a racist, but that's black Americans looking at MAGA heads and evaluating them. What if we could actually talk to the MAGA heads and get them to admit it without realizing what they're doing? Well, they have that. Public Religion Research Institute asked respondents whether they believe that, quote, it always makes the country better when all Americans speak up and protest unfair treatment by government. Then it asked the same question, but substituted black Americans for all Americans. And so these were two different groups who were asked the question. Some people were asked about everyone. Some people were asked about whether it's good when black Americans protest the government. Democrat respondents made no distinction between the two questions. 71% answered yes to both. Among Republicans, however, 49% believed it made the country better when all Americans spoke up and protested the government, but just 24% believed it when black Americans spoke up and protested. And by the way, among Republicans whose most trusted news source is Fox News, the gap was 47% yes for all Americans and just 10% for black Americans to do exactly the same thing.
You mean all that stuff that we say we're founded on and the principles of the country rising up? By the way, these Republican voters are also the ones who like to talk about the tyrannical government, that we have to make sure you clutch your guns close to your heart to make sure you're ready to go and flip over once they start stepping on your rights. Remember that? That's the whole basis. I'm surprised only 49% of Republicans only want that, just even for the folks that they think are the ones that have the right to do this. It's the way it's always been. If you've demonized a group long enough, and if you've definitely taken away their rights, and then also throw all these characteristics on them that they're the worst kinds of humans in the world, then of course you won't think that they have any reason to take part in the same level of dispute and opposition to government entities that you have. You can come and say, I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna come kidnap your governor. This is being said and partially planned. But if you just go on the streets and protest, that's a bigger problem. Think about that.
Bigger problem. Yeah, and like that 10% of people who love Fox who think it's good when Black Americans protest unfair treatment. Like the question wasn't when they're rioting in the streets. It was just, should they protest if they're being treated unfairly? And only 10% said yes. I'd like to meet that 10%, by the way. Is that libs hate watching? I don't know. No, I guess they're registered Republicans, but yeah, and think about that. They have been trained to think that it's illegitimate. And honestly, why wouldn't they? I mean, they watch Fox News. It's the core is racism. That's all it is. There's a little layer of fake populism, but that's a micron deep. It's racism. And yeah, of course they're gonna think that Black people protesting unfair treatment makes America worse off. It's because they think the unfair treatment makes America better off. They want the unfair policies of the government, the unfair way that the media, society, all of that. They think that that's what made America great. Remember, they want to make it great again. They want to go back to those times. No, they're gonna find it really inconvenient when people are trying to stop us going back to the 1950s.
It's also a characteristic of the way that our system works, as far as if you're in a capitalistic country like we are, and it's cutthroat, and the only way you can get ahead is by cutting the guy's throat that's right next to you and slightly beneath you, you're gonna go to cutting throats, or else you're not gonna make it. Hey, I've got a family, I need to cut some throats in order to make it. I'll cut some throats, I don't care who it is. But if you have a collective narrative that says these several particular groups of people are a hindrance on you making it and feeding your family, or getting to the success rate where you think you can hand down some riches or some wealth to your offspring, why not cut the group's throat that we historically have called animals, less than human, violent, angry, and not intelligent, lazy, don't want to do anything for themselves? Jared Kushner just went through all this. These aren't old tropes. This was said yesterday, or not that the day before. Yeah. This isn't old, this isn't going back to 1957. This is the same narrative and the same thought process they've always had. And when you demean a group of people to this degree, an entire group of people to this degree, you can easily say, I don't care about them. They're just animals. It's the same narrative every time. It makes it really easy. We euthanize dogs every day in shelters and people don't cry about it. Some do, but we don't cry about it because like they're just dogs. So if you equate humans to dogs, certain ones, you can just stomp all over them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Let me add just one more stat from that poll. 57% of Republicans believe that whites face a lot of discrimination. Just 52% believe that Black Americans do. Among Democrats, 13% said whites encounter a lot of discrimination. 92% said blacks do. So a little bit of a difference there between Democrats and Republicans. They think that white people are more discriminated against than Black Americans. And again, of course, I get it. None of this is super shocking. They're literally told by Tucker Carlson every day that white Americans are more discriminated against. But like, I'm white. I don't know what the discrimination that I'm supposedly suffering from every day is supposed to be. I'm like racking my brain. Okay, yes, Jayar won't let me go on that Zoom call, but I get it. Okay, that's discrimination. Other than that, I honestly don't know what it is. There is so much explicit benefit, the white privilege that you get, and then so much implicit stuff too that you have to be really trying to pay attention and trying to ferret it all out to even understand all of the ways that you're benefited. And maybe for some of these Republicans, if they don't talk to Black people, they don't have Black friends, they don't know anything about that worldview, and they don't want to know, it's easy to create this fiction where in fact you are the biggest victim ever. But man, from the outside looking in on that is a sad way to go about your life.
Yeah, it's the only way to hold on to any kind of position that you have is to then do the reverse psychologist. Oh yeah, there's so much racism for us. So who's backing up this racism? What law system has been put in place that targets white Americans in this country? You know what? As a guy, as a straight male in this country, I have privileges. I'm a Black person too, but I have privileges over other folks that maybe have the same skin tone as me, but have different sexual orientation, or also are women. So you can stack all the things that break down more and more discrimination and more bias and more help. I've never been told on anything I've ever done that, hey, Jay, because you're a guy, I don't think you I'm not going to let you do this because you're a guy. It's may have been said that because I'm black, but there's things that I have privileges because I'm a straight male in this country. Still black, but I have privileges. If I say that out loud, I don't lose my job now. I don't lose my car. I don't lose my apartment. I don't get kicked out of stores because of it. None of that happens just because I'm a straight male. I'm just saying. So it's okay to admit something, and it doesn't mean you're gonna lose those privileges.
You know, when you think about it, it is very easy to figure out the recipe for success for literally everyone who appears on Fox News. If you are part of any sort of group that is discriminated against, whether in terms of sexuality or race, gender, anything like that, religion, you go on the show and say why, in fact, the thing you're discriminated against for is bad and those people are bad. That's what you do. And if you're not a member of one of those groups, if you are a white, straight, cis male, you go on and say, oh, in fact, all of those are just the biggest weaknesses and the biggest things that you're discriminating against. It is so see-through and so perfect. It applies to literally everyone that they allow on the airwaves. What a pathetic, and at the same time, they will then step back at the end of the day and say, that's strength. That's what strength is, taking all of your built-in genetic advantages that you didn't have to do anything for, that society has arbitrarily decided to advantage, and saying, in fact, that makes me the strongest fighter, that I have to suffer through having all of this privilege.
Yep, your entire identity is in your privilege, so much so you don't even realize it anymore.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay, let's turn to a slightly more funny story, maybe, I guess. At least we'll get to talk about someone for once that we actually are fans of. Republicans are obsessed with AOC. That's not new. They've been obsessed for a really long time, but now it's actually sort of costing them. So she is facing a Republican challenge in her reelection bid. You may not know that because it's pointless and she's gonna win by a gigantic margin, but she has one. John Cummings, he's raised $9.6 million in his bid against her. I don't know what is a bigger waste of political money than that. I guess Bloomberg's run was a waste of a lot more money, but that's $9.6 million that I guarantee any number of Republicans locked in tight reelection bids or challenges would love to have a little bit of that money, but instead it's flowing to the guy who's going up against AOC, not because he has a chance, he doesn't, but because Republican donors hate AOC with every fiber of their being, and it's costing them. It's costing them. There's a Republican strategist. No, what were you gonna say?
It's the thing is the more popular she gets, and the more it's like almost like a pop star type of response she gets. It angers them even more because that's something that they've really been able to obtain. Like as a politician, you need to have this popularity that just who you are attracts people. And she tends to have that on top of policies and on top of ways to speak to people. And I honestly reach people to who they really are. That helps. And many politicians are too stiff and square to pull that off. So the anger comes even further, like how can we actually penetrate this armor that she's got? How do we break through it? And they have such anger, they don't realize how much they're actually helping her by not stop talking about how awesome and popular she is.
Yeah. Now, Republican strategist Tim Doherty says, I guarantee you 75% of his contributors, John Cummings, don't know anything about him. The people that are interested in that race financially are giving because it's AOC. And again, there's an opportunity cost to that. And it's $9.6 million. Now, this is not just Republicans. Let's both sides this for a bit. Remember that Michelle Caruso Cabrera, former CNBC anchor who lost to Ocasio-Cortez in the primary, raised $2.4 million and loaned $1 million of her own money. She's now running actually as a candidate for the Serve America movement. She's serving something. I don't think it's America. But anyway, that now we're at well over $10 million that a combination of Wall Street and Republican donors have thrown into a massive smoldering fire because they hate AOC so much. By the way, she noticed this. She tweeted recently, one perk about a GOP motivated by hatred is that it's irrational and unstrategic. All these millions of Republicans are hate pouring into my race just for shady DC consultants to scoop up and burn is less money channeled for them in tight swing races. Which is absolutely true. That is totally money that could be going to protect. Like there's a lot of Republican senators who are in very tight races. Lindsey Graham has been begging for money, and it seems like the Republican donor class is like, I hear you, buddy. I'm going to John Cummings because man, Lindsey, have you considered running against AOC? then maybe you get some donations. I don't know. I don't know.
With money in politics and giving at the end of races and I've raised this much more money. The way that transfers into what you do with your political campaign isn't always just a sweet win. I never really got that. I got my money, I'm gonna run some more ads. Saying what? What is it you're gonna say that's gonna dispute the reality of the situation? I don't care how much you say it. I'm gonna flood the airways with these false, ridiculous ads that mean nothing. Okay, the people watching are going, this is stupid. So what's the point of spending that money just to say you did? I don't know.
Maybe.
It really shows that the connection between money and getting elected is so intertwined that they can't not admit it. That the more money I got, the more chance I have to win. That's all that matters. Isn't that antithetical to the way we're supposed to think about the elections and the way we're supposed to think about representation? The person with the most money wins. Really? That's what we want to say out loud.
Listen to this lib with his democracy talk. And you're right. Look, for him, no ad he's gonna run is gonna win him the election. But for those consultants, who cares? It's all money. Yeah. They already got the money. It doesn't matter who wins, which is true for a lot of them. But let's turn to a slightly related story. You know who's really obsessed with Ted Cruz? Who's as obsessed? Who's really obsessed with AOC? Ted Cruz, as obsessed as he is with being needlessly awkward in his public addresses. And remember, as I show you this video, which we're about to go to, that he is definitely gonna be running for president again in a few years. So consider this the launch of his presidential race. Here he is talking about AOC.
It's Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and AOC. Yeah. Who keeps stomping her foot saying, Mr. President, call me Congresswoman. Like, what the hell's wrong with you, lady? Like, that's just dumb. But that's who's setting the agenda.
Yeah, we left in that last bit because what was that? That weird, awkward, heavy breathing? Was he heavy breathing because he'd done that foot stomp? And then there's the awkward laughter. Who is going to that weird rally? Who is going to that? But
that's your pitch. She tells you to call her Congresswoman. Who does that? That's just dumb. What? Well, that's the problem with AOC, is that she told you to call her Congresswoman one time. What? I'm going to the ballot box, man. I was totally gonna vote for AOC, but then Ted Cruz walked up and then said that she told you to call her Congresswoman. Oh man, that's a deal breaker. Where's the argument?
I think the argument is that he was saying that to ensure that his audience knows that he's a misogynist, talking about this lady and stuff like that. I don't know if it was more misogynistic or more awkward. I think it's sort of a peanut butter and jelly sort of situation. It was both of those things. But look, the particular thing that, look, he's obviously mocking her and implying, look how crazy she is, that she wants to be respected based on her amazing accomplishments. But let's be clear about what he's saying. He's saying she's stomping her foot and saying, Trump, respect me. She's being pathetic in her interactions with Donald Trump. Boy, Ted Cruz has no experience with that he's trying to distract you from by bringing up AOC. But Ted Cruz, who are you doing phone calls for? Who are you pretending didn't call your wife ugly and your father an assassin? Who have you supplicated yourself to for the past few years? And you're gonna pretend, Ted Cruz, you're gonna try your best to pretend in a year or two, when Trump is finally gone, he's off on his island or whatever, you're gonna pretend that you were a big, tough, strong, weasel-faced little man and that you stood up to him, but we're gonna know that you didn't. No, man, he insulted your wife, he insulted your family, and you bent the knee to him because you thought it was in your interest. Don't try to distract us with AOC. Nobody's questioning how strong AOC is. You need to think about yourself, man. And it's gonna take more than a ferret on your face to imply that you're actually strong.
These guys aren't dumb. I don't know. He doesn't think that's really gonna sway anyone. He just needs to waste some time. I don't know, maybe it's kissing up to certain donors that gonna, again, like we just talked about the race against AOC. They'll give money to people just for the sake that they made them cackle over ridiculous. I don't know. I was gonna call it a joke, but it's not even a joke he was making. He was just talking. It was weird. It was very Mean Girls, except it doesn't stick. I mean,
it's so Mean Girls by way of someone the Mean Girls would have never spoken to.
That's so weird. I mean, at least bullies have like a posse behind them that laughs at their stupid jokes so they can seem like they're funny or making fun of you. This guy's just up there by himself breathing into a mic. Hey, OC. Who's on that guy's side? Who went home and said, I heard Ted Cruz breathing in the mic today. I think I'm gonna vote for that guy.
Ted Cruz, keep your name out of your mouth. Jayar, keep your name out of your impersonation of his mouth. Because I don't like either of it. It makes both of them are bad. They're real bad and I don't like it. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit more fun to close out the show in just a minute, but before that, I'm gonna read just a few quick super chats and comments. I saw a Twitch comment from Sexy Melly B who says, John, I'd like you to know that they shoved a 2-inch needle into my arm while I was listening to the show. Your Dragon Daddy power, be real. That sucks. Hope I was able to distract you at least a little bit. That time in the hospital sounds really rough. Feel better soon. Over at the super chats. Alex says, I'm listening now to How Fascism Works by Jason Stanley. And there's a chapter on how fascists create a myth of certain minorities are lazy and don't want to succeed. Incredible. Totally, Alex. We've actually had Jason Stanley on the show like 3 times, I think. So if you search the channel, you'll find our interviews with him. Nicole D, thank you for your super chat. A guy from chat said, at this point, the Dems, when they win the Senate, should confirm a justice every month for the next 4 years and feel no shame for it. F the R's. Yeah, I mean, it should definitely be reformed and expanded, but I don't know. Joe Biden yesterday was saying he doesn't support term limits for Supreme Court justices, which again, like hypothetically, Ro Khanna, his bill, both totally follows the Constitution and establishes term limits for Supreme Court justices. Rotating them off of that to lower courts is 100% totally constitutional.
Absolutely.
Anyway, okay, let's see. Okay, Fred says, is there a good Spanish progressive news resource? Some of my immigrant fam support Diaper Don. How? I don't know, Fox News in part. Fred, that's a great question. I actually don't know, but if anybody in YouTube has a source for that, whether it's a YouTube channel or Twitch or anything like that, feel free to let them know, and thank you. Over on Twitch, let's see. So Jayar, you did your search for when you type can and you got can I change my vote? Panhandle Messiah says when I type can I get can I freeze Cinnabon? Okay, so I'm torn on that because yes, having backup Cinnabon sounds good, but who gets a Cinnabon and thinks I don't need to finish this right now? Who does that? You got it to eat it. Who's freezing it?
Well, maybe if you get like the whole, was like 6 of them, or maybe you can get them in a dozen. I don't know, but if you get tons, you can't eat them all in one sitting, or maybe you can.
If you activated challenge mode, you activated challenge mode. You need to do it.
And also the answer, I love that we got off on the Cinnabon tangent. Throw it in the fridge. You don't have to freeze it, just fridge. It'll keep it for a bit. Yeah.
Totally,
I assume, isn't the fridge cold enough? I would think.
I think so. Anyways. Hold on, there was another. I Am Soccer says, I typed can in Google and it finished, can I buy serotonin? What does Google think is wrong with me? You know what I'm gonna do live? I'm gonna type can.
You're gonna get the same I got, I think.
So I've got, yeah, I guess it's the trending, can I change my vote? But I think that was based on me doing the research. Can I use an iPad as a monitor? I think it's my real one. So this totally knows me. Can I use my iPad as a monitor? Can dogs eat watermelon? Can dogs eat grapes? Can dogs eat bananas? Can dogs eat mango? All I Google is stuff about dogs eating fruit, I guess. And I just want to be ready with that banana stuff. What's up?
You know what I got? I wrote, is Ted Cruz? And the rest was up for re-election. Oh, that means people can't wait to vote him out. They can't wait. If he's up for re-election, they're wondering if they need to vote him out. Come on, bro.
Apparently. Anyway, okay. So with that, why don't we jump into our last story? We're already quite a bit over, but this is a fun one, and we don't want to miss it. It may be hard to remember that Kayliegh McEnany, long before her binder of defenses of Donald Trump, used to appear on CNN. She was actually pretty critical of Donald Trump. We've talked about that in the past, but it turns out that way back in 2015, she actually spoke in particular about what it would be like if Donald Trump went up against Joe Biden. Listen to this.
Advising a campaign, which of the Democrats would you want to go head to head against?
I would say Joe Biden is who I'd want to go head to head against for the reasons you just articulated. That being said, I think the Republicans run into a problem if it is Joe Biden and if it is maybe a Trump on the other side, because Joe Biden, one of the things he is remarkable at is really kind of being a man of the people and resonating with middle class voters, feeling like coming off as human. You know, his gaffes, as much as we make fun of them, to a certain extent, they make him look human. So in that sense, he's likable. So while, you know, I think Joe Biden would be an easier person to beat, I think, at the same time, you know, we've got Hillary Clinton's mistrust or mistruths. We have someone who is not a good politician. So it kind of is a toss-up, really. But I'd say at the end of the day, probably Joe, although if Trump is against Joe, I think the juxtaposition of kind of the man of the people and kind of this tycoon is a problem. Although Donald Trump remarkably is coming off as a man of the people despite being this, you know, wealthy business tycoon.
Jayar, I mean, look, it's fairly obvious. Basically, everyone says that about Joe Biden, but she wasn't really wrong. Like, yeah, his gaffes don't really make him unlikable. She's trying to pretend now as press secretary that they're huge issues and they go to him being crazy or something. But when she wasn't being paid to lie for him, just paid in general to deceive people, she was admitting that, yeah, no, people like someone who's a little bit real and makes mistakes and stuff like that.
Crazy enough, Kayliegh McEnany gave like an actual Republican assessment, political assessment of what the race, what she feels it would be. Yeah, she still was leaning towards Trump, still saying she thinks Trump could beat Biden. This is again 2016, when Biden didn't actually run. But it really, it gives you a full, clear illustration of the way a Republican would think and analyze something like this from their perspective versus a Republican who's now paid to demonize and campaign for their perspective. So the idea is to create this scenario where the other person's a monster and everything that they do or say, every step they take means that destruction, total collapse. But when they're not actually in the race, you can say things honestly like, yeah, there's issues that Biden has, but these are the good things about him. Because that's just a normal thought process. She's not actually as dumb as she has to be now that she's working for Trump. But in order to work for Trump, you actually have to dumb down any full, clear thought process that you might have, at least in the public. Maybe behind closed doors, they still say things like, hey, you know, Joe is coming off way better than Donald is this week. Maybe we should do this. And then when they present Donald with it, he goes, what are you talking about? You mean words? No, let's not go that route.
Yeah. I think that when you become press secretary, they do two things. They suck all your brains out of your head and then they give you a binder of things to say. And I've got the ultimate example of that. So I'm gonna skip to the last graphic, by the way. So back before she was working as press secretary, she was like, Joe is like warm and funny and he comes off as a real person. She was being honest. And now she can't do that because that's her job, is to not be honest. Responding to her 2015 comments in a statement to CNN, McEnany said that since then, she has learned of what she called Biden's, quote, profound personal corruption, and said the former vice president has become, quote, an empty vessel for the liberal elites and far left, echoing attack lines often used by obviously, because she's not a person anymore. She just reads, this is the line I'm supposed to say, personal corruption. The far left controls him. That's what I think. I don't feel anything. I don't have anything. I'm an empty husk of a person now. I just whatever the campaign says, that's what I say.
And honestly,
that's frustrating, but really fast. My last point on this, that's super frustrating, but you know what's gonna be more frustrating? In a year when she's back on CNN as a commentator. That's gonna be more frustrating.
I mean, look at Rick Santorum. He ran for president back in 16 anyway. I think it was 16. It feels like it was way longer ago than that. And look at him on CNN every day, just spouting Republican talking points, just for the sake of having his face on there and say, here's our Republican to say stupid things that we already know that they're gonna say. And for people who may say, back to my thought, for people who may say, oh yeah, what about Democrats who just kind of jump around and say whatever's needed to be said, maybe by press secretaries or campaign advisors or spokespeople? Sure, they do that. But that's why people, and this all ties back together. That's why progressives that are getting so popular in this country are that popular, because people can see through the BS. And when someone actually comes through and says something that they believe in and goes for an approach that they believe in without all of the political fancy icing on top of the cake. People like that. Yeah, it happens with establishment Democrats too. They jump around, jump ship, say one nice thing about somebody, then flip back and do it another way. We know that happens. We know how much the Clintons loved Donald Trump and them before. They all interact and love each other. It's just now when it comes to election time, they start pulling out the knives. How about we get consistent, be truthful, and say what you believe in, and then fight to go that direction? That's what progressives are doing, and that's why both of these establishment sides don't like that, because there's a little bit too much reality, and it makes them look as fake as they are.
Yeah. So see-through, man. Like this is one of the things that turns people off to politics. They look at that and they think that's not a real person. That's not a person who's actually telling us what they think or feel, and they're not thinking anything and they're not feeling anything. They're just being paid to lie to us. Anyway, Jayar, thank you for making this Big News Tuesday. Appreciate it. The next time we have you on the show, I mean, we're gonna be doing election coverage tomorrow, but everybody needs to know that on day one of the fallout of the election, day 3 of election week, the first post-election show is gonna be Jayar Jackson. That's gonna be something. Looking forward to it, Jayar.
Oh man, this is all set up. This is the whole reason I chose Wednesdays. I chose a long time ago, knowing that the day after the election I'd be on.
And every election off into eternity, he will be the first guest. So Jayar, thank you for that.
For sure, thank you guys, love it. Cheers.
And everybody at home, let's read just a few more comments before we close this thing out. I got an interview to do in just a little bit. Demario Bro says, I get the same dog results as you, John. That's funny. Jackson Price says, David Pakman has been doing shows in Spanish. I didn't know that, that's interesting. Dusty Jones says, President AOC, period. I hope. I mean, like 60% of my hopes for the future are tied up with the idea that in 2.5 years, she's gonna launch her presidential run, but we'll see. We'll see if that happens. Basically, the work I'm doing between now and then is to get it so that she'll do it on the show, but we'll see if that happens. It's not trending that way. Torn Tokoroa says, John, the so-called discrimination for whites is seemingly the idea we hate you and think we want people who look like you to be enslaved. Yeah, it's just a big ball of nonsense. Well, thank you. Let's see. Tory Wisdom says, best motivation, fear of losing if it's not too big to force them to accept rather than contest it. That's true. Thanks for powering through the tech issues earlier. Thank you. Well, I didn't power through them. Thankfully, our tech team behind the scenes fixed it very quickly and figured out what it was. But thank you for sticking with us. Telly Panda on Twitch says, thank you, John. This morning started off rough and you and the community on Twitch have helped me feel a little better. I'm glad to hear that, Telly Panda. That's a big part of why we do this. Kate Jones says, can you make the chat members only on YouTube? I don't think that I can, also because TDR as a YouTube channel doesn't have the ability to have members. TYT has that. I don't know why we don't or when that's gonna happen, but right now we can't even have it. It would certainly be more useful because I've been trying to manage the YouTube chat, but it's a losing battle. There's a lot of trolls, a lot of bots and everything. But thank you to everybody who actually uses it and enjoys it. You're the reason it's worth trying to save. Let's see. Shanna, in response to my comment about her earlier super chat, says, Lil John, you're totally not an afterthought. You're the best. Yours is the only show I watch regularly. That's all you, buddy. Thank you. Appreciate that. There's a lot of other good ones, but thank you. I do appreciate that. Misty Bauer says, wow, I hope people don't change the vote. Yikes. Yeah, some people will, and you're allowed to, by the way. For all that we said in that first block, if you sent in your vote and you want to change it, you should be allowed to do that. That has to be a part of any system of early voting. I'm just not gonna pretend that that's a big thing or has anything to do with Trump or 2020 or whatever. Okay, let's see. Spice Girl on Twitch says, no Zoom call for John. I know it hurts, it hurts. I wanna know what goes on in there and Jayar doesn't tell me. And Trimo Batiki says, the guy huffing because he's out of shape. Yeah, if you can't stamp your feet a couple times without continuing on with your thoughts, that's sort of an issue. I'd look into that. Over on Twitch, Brooke Mark says, John, tell them to come to Twitch chat. We're very nice. I like having both. I like having the two different communities, but both communities are very nice. Jason Dante on Twitch says, thank you and the Dragon Squad for getting me through this rough time. Just received my certification in software engineering, and as a gay black man, I'm scared to even go into the workforce after yesterday's events. You all bring hope for me. Thank you, Jason Dante, I appreciate that. And we will continue to be here for each other as we continue on stakes week and then launch into election week, which is certainly going to be something. Now, I'm going to give you one last warning, perhaps. Tomorrow, live show, we have a guest. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying watch the live show. And not because it's some crazy guest that we've never had on. It's a guest that we've had on before, but I'm just saying you're not going to want to miss it. It's important. I can't say anything. I can't spoil it. I'm just saying watch it. If you have to sit in your car outside of Target, if you have to do it in the bathroom at work, make it happen, people. Come on. Anyway, I appreciate you watching. Tomorrow is going to be something. We'll see how that goes together. And until then, stay safe out there. Stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.